I believe the gap's got wider between Tier 1 and Tier 2. I think World Rugby has got a lot to answer for in this space. In particular, I believe there should be eligibility rules which allow players who have played for Tier 1 countries, such as the All Blacks, to go back after, say, a year and play for their countries of origin. Think how much stronger Tonga would have been had Charles Piutau been in the side. Samoa also with the likes of Stephen Luatua, and it would have made a huge difference. Also, there has been a lot of incidents where Pacifica players who have got their family responsibilities have made themselves curiously unavailable for their national teams because of the pressure put on by clubs in Europe. I believe that you cannot put any blame on that on the Pacifica players themselves, because they've got to feed their families, but it just shows that World Rugby has been really poor in addressing these issues. New Zealand has tried a lot to make the changes at World Rugby level, but we have been blocked by being unable to get the necessary votes. And how ironic it is that last night Scotland got dealt to by Japan with a team from Scotland that includes players like Thompson and Maitland, who learned all their rugby here in New Zealand. So it's the irony of it is there for all of us to see.
Does World Rugby need to put pressure on the Northern Hemisphere and the clubs to agree to relaxing those eligibility rules?
As far as the eligibility rules are concerned, that's World Rugby's area, and that change could, and in our opinion, should be made. In terms of the clubs, it's around about enforcement and making sure that all parties are working together. But yeah, I think it's disappointing. Fiji would be disappointed in their effort, even though they finished third in the group. They could have done better. And Samoa and Tonga, quite frankly, disappointing. But they're disappointing for these very reasons, that they're being starved of the necessary resources and opportunities to play the game and improve. If you take the All Blacks match against Tonga in Hamilton, I gained no pleasure from that game whatsoever, because all it did was reinforce this widening gap, and it has to be addressed, and this World Cup has highlighted it.
Certainly watching that game between Tonga and New Zealand was like watching privilege and disadvantage. But if relaxing those eligibility rules around the world would grow the game both economically and globally, what reason does World Rugby have to justify the fact that they haven't made that change yet?
Well, it's the World Rugby members who, of course, vote. It's not World Rugby, the organisation, it's the members. And I think you can point the finger straight at the likes of Scotland, Ireland, Wales, England, these countries who, you look at them and you look at their teams and what they have done in terms of rules that suit themselves. I mean, I'm very tempted, I probably won't go quite this far, but I'm very tempted to say it's virtually colonialism.
I did want to ask you about that, whether there was a little bit of colonial influence in terms of who's controlling the game, yet we see Pacific players peppered throughout the tournament in different countries all across the world.
Yes, well, hopefully we are going to see some change in this space, and all we can do is from a New Zealand point of view, supported by Australia, is to try and bring about change. But it's not easy, and it's a matter of getting the votes. But hopefully this World Cup has highlighted the issue.
As the chairman of New Zealand Rugby Union's board, what does it feel like to watch that tough predicament that many Pacific players go through, which you just said, having to choose between providing for their families and then their pride in their home countries or their nations? We're often seeing players like we have Scotland versus Samoa playing against their own families on the field at these Rugby World Cup tournaments. Well,
I've got no problem with players maximising their opportunities. You take Sean Maitland, for example, who's part of his family was supporting the Samoans, part of his family. Obviously, he is part of Scotland. That's fine. And Sean's made his call. Boy from Tokoroa made good. On the other hand, why shouldn't Samoa also be able to gain from the fact that it's got players of heritage who could have been playing for that team? It's just that the rules are so skewed to favour the established unions.
What's New Zealand Rugby's commitment, New Zealand Rugby Union's commitment to supporting eligibility rules being relaxed and supporting the growth of Pacific players in the game?
Well, we have argued this for a long time, consistently argued it at World Rugby level. Steve Chu, our CEO, has been very vocal about this, but what more can you do other than to raise the argument and use opportunities such as this with the Rugby World Cup to make our point?
Looking ahead towards future Rugby World Cups, how different would the tournaments be if these eligibility rules would be relaxed? What would that look like to you?
Well, at the moment, if things stay the way they are, the World Cup will be played, let's take in 20 years' time, the World Cup in 2039. If we don't change the rules, then I suspect pretty much the same 8 to 10 teams will be there in 2039 battling it out. What the game needs to do is to grow. And we saw this with the proposal around the Nations Championship, which New Zealand Rugby supported. And it's great to see Japan succeed. It's terrific to see Japan succeed. So if we could get other teams, and it's not just the Pacific Islands, the likes of Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, but other countries such as the USA, Canada, Brazil, Germany, Spain, Russia, all being able to perform at a better level. If it comes down to this, do you legislate to protect what you have, or do you look at opportunities to grow? And I think that's the conflict.